Hello, International Council of Psychologists. This is the Antiracism training. What works, what doesn't work, and how can we do better? We have Dr. Leah Horvath, Taylor Levitt, Tina Luzzi, and myself, Monica Zabinski. What we'll be covering a little bit is what the Anti-Racism Education and Work Group looks like at National Louis University. We'll do a review of the literature on anti-racism education, best practices, and well as directions for the future. So for some background, the Illinois School of Professional Psychology is made up of 79 total students with 41 white identified individuals and 38 identified individuals of color. We of course follow the APA educational standards and expectations regarding multicultural competency and awareness. However, we kind of recognized that we wanted more opportunity and space to really talk about things, especially given our socio-political climate and the events occurring in the world around us. Our group is made up of a faculty member as well as 3 student leaders. And we have about 25 total interested members on our mailing list and about 6 to 12 members who come on the regular. And this is a combination of students, staff, and faculty who join. Each month we focus on a different topic related to race and whatever other issues we're focusing on. And we spend about 15 to 25 minutes on an educational component. And the rest of the time we leave for discussion and participation. And we meet for about 1 hour a week. For us, we really believe that racism is a real systemic, interpersonal, and personal issue that pertains to all of us, regardless of race. We want to further learn and understand and reflect on our own participation in racism, as well as believing that participating in a group like this offers us the opportunity to reflect and understand what we can do to change the world around us.
While we're certainly continuously adding to the literature in this field, what we have presently is pretty consistent. So what we know that works is reflexivity, and that's basically meeting people where they are, not putting on any sort of guilt or shame for any biases they may hold, but meeting them where they are and allowing them to progress forward in their own way. Also, we're finding that creating change within the structure rather than expecting trainings or individuals who go through these trainings to create the change we want to see. So being much more proactive rather than performative. What we're seeing that doesn't work is short-term trainings. And unfortunately, we see those a lot in institutions and corporations, but they don't seem to provide the type of lasting change that we want to see. Additionally, mandatory trainings are showing us to not be as effective. Individuals feel controlled and therefore aren't as receptive to the information that's being presented to them. And finally, some of these trainings have been found to promote negative emotions within participants. And going back to that reflexivity notion, we would rather meet people where they are, help them understand their biases and their emotions and feelings, rather than place any sort of guilt or shame on them so that they can progress in their own way.
As Tina noted, based on the review of our literature, some strengths of our group include that it's voluntary, with group leaders and members involved in challenging biases and targeting attitude change as a prerequisite to behavior change. There's no blame. We recognize that all people have biases and internalized racism, and we need to learn to see those. We explicitly use the term anti-racism to keep the focus on race and challenging racist structures. And finally, we're engaged in ongoing conversations and commitment to anti-racist practice. This is not a time-limited group. We wanted to avoid the tendency to get activated about anti-racism only when something prominent is in the news. Our review of the literature also helped us to identify practices that we can include to strengthen our efforts to embody anti-racist attitudes and behaviors. Our group, having formed during the global pandemic, has been mostly focused on attitude change and less on action. Finding ways to be more active, to engage in anti-racist advocacy, to use words and behaviors to deliberately interrupt racism, as South and colleagues note, will strengthen our group. One of the most well-supported ways to reduce bias is to increase contact with Black and Indigenous people of color. Our group, while open to all, is predominantly attended by white people. We need to look for purposeful and non-exploitive ways to increase contact with other groups. And lastly, using habit-breaking strategies to break biased thinking could add to our group as well.
In regards to future research, we recommend that programs such as ours begin to evaluate the effectiveness of the training to instill positive change, as it is important that we begin to identify evidence-based interventions. Researchers should also consider evaluating the differences between short-term and longer-term programs, and researchers should address how anti-racist attitude changes impact organizations, such as how organizations have incorporated anti-racist beliefs and how they address issues of race as a result of the training. Thank you very much for listening to our talk. We look forward to further discussion during the conference.